Welcome back to the MyLatinLife podcast. Since 2014, MyLatinLife has been your trusted guide to traveling and living in America. Our guest today is Leon, also known as Lee BTC21. He's the CMO over at BitVault, which is a pretty interesting Bitcoin tool, and he's been involved in the Bitcoin ecosystem for a long time. So we welcome Leon to the podcast. How's it going, man?
Hey, Brandon, it's a pleasure. Very honored to be on your show. Yeah, let's rock.
Absolutely. Well, I guess, do you want to give us a bit of an introduction here?
Sure. Yeah. So I think I got into the idea of the flag theory. It must be around 2015, roughly, through a German guy you probably know, Christoph Heuermann. So that made me realize that there is really practical things to advance your personal liberty, and I've always been a fan of that. My political interest or interest in politics and economics started around 2010, I think. So I've been very interested, and went down the Austrian economics rabbit hole about around that time. And then there's a lot of theory, but how do you actually practically become freer in a rather unfree world? Well, how about you start a business and buy some Bitcoin, essentially, in a nutshell.
What's the origin of that phrase, freedom in an unfree world?
It's a book, right? It's a famous book. Yeah, I don't know the author, but How I Found Freedom in an Unfree World. I think essentially, I'm probably sure I'm butchering it up, but if I remember correct, the idea is that on the base level of the world, you can clearly identify there's these territories and there's these gangs, that permanent gangs that control these, right? And then how do you play that? And so most people, when they realize, you get born, and then there's the gang, and that gives you the taxpayer ID, and you have that for the rest of your life. And you say, oh, thank you, and you never signed a contract for that, right? It's just you get the ID, and there you go. Here's your number. And eventually, if I think if you think that through philosophically, you realize you're in a big jail, and you will always pay the tax. So some people just stick with it, and I think there's nothing wrong with that. If you there's a positive thing. It's a fairly safe world. It's become much safer if you live in the West. Really high standard, but you will be in that system, right? And so if you don't like that, well, then there are all these options, which I guess listeners to your show would know a lot about now, thanks to your work.
Yeah, so our audience is digital nomads, expats. I'm sure probably 90% of listeners hold crypto or have at one point in time, right? Or more. So tell us about BitVault, specifically the company you're working with now. What exactly do you guys do?
Yep, absolutely. Yeah. So I think everyone that has bought into Bitcoin understands that this is an absolutely fascinating new technology, and there's many different levels, right, to think about it. To me, what I really appreciate about Bitcoin is the fact that I can take it anywhere, right? And it's decentralized. It's permissionless. I don't need to register with any government or institution or bank. It's really like I download the wallet in case my phone is limited. Well, there's ways around that. So really, anyone can access it, no matter where you live. And the rules are clear, right? There's no governed monetary policy or monetary policy that humans would decide. So there's almost no level of corruption, at least for now. And so you have a really amazing technology there. And I would go so far to say that it's so incredible that it's the only thing that you can actually own. Because think about it, right? So all your real estate globally, all your other properties, you always need a framework around it, right? Or a system, or a broker, or a legal framework, right? So your stock portfolio, well, sure, you have the title, and you own it technically, right? But there's still a level of trust, which is, there's nothing wrong about that, right? But it's very different with Bitcoin. Same with real estate. I mean, many people think, oh, real estate is amazing, right? Well, until you, you get your tax increase on the property tax, until in Germany, for instance, the government says, oh, you know what, we think everyone needs these new, we have to get rid of gas, and therefore everyone needs these big, massive kind of AC, we call them Wärmepumpen, so like, yeah, well, I don't know the English term, right? But a massive new thing that you have to upgrade, or you need insulation, massive amount of investment you have to put in. And if you don't, well, then, you basically have to sell your house or whatever. So it's pretty wild and sort of unpredictable. And therefore, you can only come to the conclusion that if you compare that with Bitcoin, it's a completely new world. Why? Because Bitcoin, you don't have any external force or institution telling you what to do with it. All you do is you have a relationship with the network, which is based on math and cryptography, right? So if you own Bitcoin, all that means is you own the private key to the wallet address that you generated on your own. And so it's a new dimension of ownership and a new type of property that I think never existed before. And so at BitVault, we're busy and very occupied advancing the custody and convenience of owning and holding and storing and especially securing this new asset type, right? So probably many of your readers or listeners are familiar with the book, The Sovereign Individual, right? And
Yep.
that book is obviously, it's a phenomenal foresight that the authors were able to have. And the core idea, right, is that with technology, the government loses grip as more and more people will have the freedom to travel and be more global, and technologies allow so many international things to do, right? So your bank is going to be mobile, and you're traveling, your work is remote, right? So so many people work remote. That's amazing, because suddenly you don't have to live in one place, which means this tax ID is less and less relevant.
Yeah. So
Yep.
basically, Bitcoin crypto is a huge part of flag theory.
Come again?
So you're familiar with the idea of flag theory, right?
Correct.
So it's like crypto, Bitcoin is a huge. It's like a fundamental pillar of flag theory. You could say it's a flag. Like crypto
Correct.
and Bitcoin could basically be its own flag, almost separate from the other
Yep.
flags. That's how important it is.
Yeah, so I think nobody has made that point, maybe yet, but I would say Bitcoin is the apex flag. So you say passport, right? Like passport is the king flag or the final flag. Well, sure, it's the most important to be global, but Bitcoin is, in my eyes, is more important because it's the only thing you actually own. The passport gets shut down if you do not comply with whatever standards. Maybe right now you're good, but what happens if governments become more draconian or more desperate, right? And I think
Oh
that
yeah,
that
any
is
passport can get taken away.
exactly. So your bitcoins can never get taken away as long as you know how to store them. And I think that's where we BitVault really does innovate, because lots of people have Bitcoin on the exchange, or don't even have the actual coin. They have the ticker, the ETF on their broker, but that's not the idea of Bitcoin. The idea is that you have it in your own custody.
Could you expand a bit on how you could see crypto and Bitcoin fitting into like a sovereign individual's plan?
Yeah, 100%. So, the book laid it out. They called it in the 70s. They called it cyber monies. So they foresaw that there would be cyber money, and they just Bitcoin didn't exist then. But it sort of became clearer over time. I think that as the internet protocol evolved, that there could be values on that digital network, on that decentralized network. But what nobody knew back then was how it would actually work out, and it took many years until 2008 to ultimately figure that out. And so most people think, oh, Bitcoin is sort of old and bulky, and it will there will be new innovation that will make it obsolete. But really, if you look into the history and how it evolved, you will realize that it is more of a Bitcoiners like to call it like immaculate conception. So it's a perfect way of putting the pieces together and creating this new network. Just like the internet protocol, I think there were many different approaches back in the day. So private, corporate institutes, companies said, okay, we'll have a private internet because the public internet is not safe enough, and we want to monetize it better if we have it privatized. But really, what was the value proposition was the global, unlimited, permissionless network, and that was ultimately what would survive and actually thrive and be the real value proposition, or why the network became so valuable. And before Bitcoin, there were many approaches too. There was things like e-gold, digital token that was backed with gold. There was digicash. There was tons of different, or not tons, but dozens of experiments and attempts. However, they always were missing one or the other aspect. So either they were decentralized, or they weren't be able to audit, or they weren't be able to distribute fairly. Most of the time, they were just shut down in the end by the government. And so Bitcoin was the culmination of all these ideas and technologies coming together over the years, but they had to be developed first. They had to be experimentation first before someone could put it together. And then in 2008, Satoshi published the white paper, and for the first time, we had something digital that is scarce at the same time, and that's the breakthrough. There's only 21 million Bitcoin, and nobody can shut down the network because it's so decentralized and so secure. And I think that's really the revolution. I mean, it's not easy to explain, I would say. And, I think the average Bitcoiner would probably agree it's a lifetime thing. Once you get interested in that, the rabbit hole goes pretty deep, and you may never get out. But it's worth it, and it's absolutely fascinating. And yeah, doing your first step is I think definitely the most critical thing you can do to advance your flag game, to own an asset that nobody can take from you. In fact, again, as circling back, it's the only thing you actually own in this world right now, because everything else you'll have to deal with it. Where you'll have to deal with the gangs.
How does BitVault help you own it? How does the actual own? Could you describe how ownership works? Like, does BitVault own the coins? I guess not. I'm sure you own it. How does that work? This episode of the MyLatinLife podcast is brought to you in part by Crema Social. Crema Social is like TikTok for international dating. It's an app you can download right now on your phone, and 3 out of 4 people on Crema are single women. The app was founded in Colombia, so unsurprisingly, there are a lot of Latinas on the app, by the way. So how does it work? Crema Social is a social meal experience where you invite a hot girl for a lunch date via video call and food delivery. New concept, so you'll have to try it out for yourself, but this is probably the best way to meet Latinas before you visit the country. So if you're in Latin America or planning to visit Latin America, download Crema Social now and start getting dates right away. There will be a link in the description to download, or just search Crema Social on your favorite app store. Have fun, guys.
Yeah, that's a great question, Brandon. Thanks. The typical way ownership on Bitcoin goes down is you purchase the Bitcoin. Ideally, you purchase it privately with something like in a private transaction with a friend, or if you can't help it, you purchase on a bank or broker or exchange. Usually, they will ask for your identification, which again is not necessarily what you want, because privacy is a right just any other property right, and you should be able to reveal.
So it's better to buy Bitcoin off exchange.
Well, I think there are pros and cons to it. Obviously, the exchange is there's a secure way, it's trusted, but the downside is you will have to upload your passport. When Satoshi created Bitcoin, he didn't say, "Oh, let's have this decentralized, crypto anarchic network, and you please all upload your ID, your government ID, to the exchanges, to the banks." But it is what it is. I think there was no other way. That's what it is. But yes, it is better to purchase privately, because why would you want your ID associated with your purchases? I don't think that makes any sense legitimately. I think KYC is actually the illicit activity. It's tracking and tracing. It's risky. It creates risk to you, to the whole network. All these databases get hacked eventually, and then your passport, your data gets sold, and it just creates attack surfaces. So
Yeah, the justification for KYC is kind of ridiculous. It's like, yeah, we gotta get everybody's ID because there might be like,
yep. But it's beautiful for the adversaries that we might expect, the powers that be, considering that as the sovereign individual thesis unfolds, well, they have to step up their game too. So I think it's we're September 13th, 2001, 9/11. After that, that's when travel got restricted and surveilled and tracked and traced, and also all these financial regulations that came into place. Now travel rule, one of the worst ideas. But anyway, there are ways around. One other actually cool idea that is pretty little known, even among the Bitcoin community, is mining. The problem is that there's, basically the narrative going on that individual mining is not profitable. And indeed, it is difficult, but there are ways to do it. So you can use a mining as a service provider and then purchase the rig with your bank card, and then the payout, the rewards, the mining reward is, as we call it, wild sats, right? So they're not coming from the exchange; they come directly from the network, as Satoshi envisioned, the network to bootstrap and circulate eventually. So yeah, so there's many ways to buy Bitcoin, preferably the private one, and then the security is self custody, which means you create a Bitcoin wallet with a trusted Bitcoin wallet software. Make sure it's open source and reviewed and trusted. Do research. Do not download random software either on your mobile or desktop computer, because this is dangerous. Or there could be malware. There was a fake software on the iOS store for a time where people apparently lost some money. So just take the time, maybe go and find a trusted advisor. There's lots of very professional advisors. Look up their reviews. Just go into like a network of people and see if you can trust them. So the best thing in Bitcoin, or the best motto or credo we have, is don't trust, verify, and do your own research, right? So don't blindly go into something. Actually do the homework, do the study, read the Bitcoin standard, read Mastering Bitcoin. The more you know, the more comfortable, the more sovereign you will be. And self-custody, then really simply, you create this wallet, you get the private key, which then gets translated into the mnemonic seed, which is 12 words or 24 words. And these 12 words are your Bitcoin. And that is important to emphasize. They are your Bitcoin. If somebody else gets them, well, then he or she owns that Bitcoin. And if you lose them, the Bitcoins are gone, because sadly, or fortunately, there is no helpline, which means there's also no central party that could restore these 12 words for you, because it's decentralized. And so what BitVault does now is advancing that, because if you have just, we call it a single sig, which means just one wallet with a one time 12 words. So whoever has this private key can, we call it signing, right? Can sign the transaction and therefore send it on the network. That is mathematically, statistically, relatively safe, simply because it's so decentralized. So attackers have a hard time, attacking you directly, especially if you, have a low profile, if you don't go public. Very, very safe. But it still has a single point of failure, in that sense that if you do get into trouble, may it be an online attack where you download the wrong software, enter your 12 words, or get into some other scam. There's lots of scams where also, once you're a little older, maybe not as savvy or quick anymore mentally. There's just a lot of risk online. And the other thing, which is even more dangerous, is if you're public. Then we see a rise in, very scary headlines with kidnapping scenarios. What do you do then, right? If you have 12 words and have to hand it over, what do you do? There are certain ways, like a passphrase, a decoy wallet. However, they're not easy to manage sometimes. And again, like, you have to have very good technical skills.
I've never heard of it.
Lots of hardware wallets offer that, and there's lots of tricks you could do, like have a small wallet on your phone, right? Have just $1,000 maybe in your Bitcoin wallet on your phone, and that's all you got, right? And then maybe have some other stacks with the generational wealth, with the life savings, with your your dynasty, right? Your 100 bitcoins that might not be on your phone, and the idea here is that you don't need to rely on a single private key or a single signature in order to send the Bitcoin. What institutions do is they have what is called multi-signature. So this could be you have two keys and you need two keys to sign, or you have three keys and you need two to sign, or five and you need three, and so forth. The most common for individuals is two of three. So you'll create two, keys essentially, and you need two to sign, which you can also then distribute if you want it, in different jurisdictions. And so with BitVault, you will be able to have a 2 or 3 multi-signature vault, and on top of that, you will have access to time delay features, and that means that you cannot send the bitcoins out immediately. You have to wait between 2 hours and 15 days. So in the scenario of an online attack or scam, it often helps to just wait another day or wait 2 hours even to calm down. Often people fall into these traps because they're rushed, and that's actually a core principle of these scams, is rushing you and have urgency. Now what we see is AI scam attacks where they call you and say, hey, your son is in a car accident, we need $50,000 deposit, or the bank's not going to let you. Well, Bitcoin, you have Bitcoin, right? And you don't verify it because it's an AI fake call, right? If you have these 2 hours, you will realize, okay, well, if it's that bad, I'm sure they'll take care of him in the emergency room, and you can send the money later or something like that. Is the scenario that I mentioned earlier, is what we see is unfortunately increasing for people in the public. Say you're in we call it $5 wrench attack. So someone knows you have Bitcoin and tracks you down and actually gunpoint situation that happened in Paris recently to founder of a hardware security wallet. And
Wow.
What do you do then, right? They were fortunate to have pretty good setups. I think the police got them out, pretty quickly, and there was no way for them to get anything. But you as an individual, how do you do that? Most Bitcoiners have just a hardware wallet and 12 words. I know, so many stories. People they had a police raid in Venezuela, and money's gone, and 5-10 years later it's millions, but they have no chance to get it back. BitVault prevents this by very simply having multi-sig. So a single sig is not enough, a single key is not enough to take the funds. And if you have this kidnapping scenario, which I think again is a relatively low risk for most people, but if you have a high profile or just have more funds, you just want to eradicate that scenario risk and just have the lowest risk possible, right? In that scenario, I believe that, or we believe at BitVault, that you have a much improved negotiation position if you have a time delay. On top of that, you also have a duress alarm. So at the
By
moment,
the way, when there's a time delay, is there a way to cancel it during the period, or how does that work?
no, there's no way to cancel it. You have to wait. What you can do is, obviously, if you have both keys, is to reset it, right? But the time delay.
Yeah, so you can't. Yeah, so you can't cancel it, or
Well,
what?
no, sure, yeah, no, sure. You will be able to intervene, right, and fix the transaction. That's the idea. So,
Okay.
but most importantly, the most important thing is that if you can show the time delay, then the attacker basically has no way to take the money immediately, and that will give you time. And in security, it's always how quickly can the attacker steal versus how much time do you have to intervene. And what we do as well is the duress alarm. So you can set a secret notification to notify, may it be police, family member, trusted contact, or any other. I mean, initially it will be just one message in a signal chat, but you could imagine that with later versions we'll have things like even a GPS signal or any kind of setup to just inform help if there's an actual scenario. So we'll have probably, like, we were even considering like an entire dashboard or notification system for that. And so that's basically how banks secure the funds. If robbers come into the bank, well, immediately there's an alarm. And also the vaults and banks, often they're time locked, so there's just no way to steal it. It doesn't make sense. The risk is too high, the reward is little. And in Bitcoin, we have the saying, be your own bank, right? Again, back to the idea that you can actually be your own bank, right? It's literally a bank vault, a Swiss bank vault in your pocket, the Bitcoin wallet. But banks spend multiple millions on cybersecurity and they have the best engineers. And if they lose money, well, they just created new. They created out of thin air anyway, so they just printed. This happened. There was even, I think, transfers in banks of central banks. Like people stole from the central bank with transfers, crazy stuff. And so BitVault is helping you to become your own bank, but bank grade, not just your plastic hardware wallet single sig. You'll actually have a very professional multi-signature wallet with time delays and duress alarms to just increase, level up the security for Bitcoin holders.
Hey guys, quick break from the episode to tell you about BitRefill. BitRefill allows you to shop online and in person without banks, converting your crypto directly into merchant balance. We're talking gift cards to Nike, Amazon, Apple, Airbnb, Hotels.com, and many more, all paid for with crypto. BitRefill offers more than 10,000 gift card options in 180 countries all across Latin America, including Brazil, Colombia, Mexico, Argentina, El Salvador, and many more. You can also apply the code MyLatinLife at checkout to get 10% back on your first purchase. Go to bitrefill.com for more information. Okay. Speaking of being your own bank, a lot of people talk about, just lend against your Bitcoin. So how would lending against your Bitcoin work in a BitVault context?
Yeah, that's right. I do think that the idea to collateralize or take a loan against your Bitcoin is something that more and more people will consider, given that we're transitioning out of the fiat world and into the Bitcoin world. But during this transition period, as you know, we have to wait until the governments worldwide will reduce down in impact and size. But right now, right, because every purchase is taxed, it's actually better to not sell the Bitcoin and instead take a loan. The beautiful thing with Bitcoin is that it is programmable, and so in technically you can do an decentralized escrow or decentralized a loan engine, and so there's platforms like hodlhodl.com, or even I think Bitfinex has a marketplace for lending and borrowing. With BitVault, it could also be possible. I think we're definitely, considering putting that on a roadmap to use BitVault and, control the key and then have, I don't know, an escrow service or some decentralized or centralized way to facilitate a loan transaction with, either stablecoin or even, any other asset on the other side. So I think that's absolutely fascinating. I would only, share as well that the idea of Bitcoin, in my eyes, is that you have a sound money standard, and then you will maybe not see as much of a need for massive amount of a credit and personal loans, because if we look back at the times of the gold standard, I think lots of business happened just with pure cash purchases, and I think a lot of people prefer that. So just buy cash instead of going into credit. It's more of a tax scheme, right?
Yeah, but the problem is when you spend it, sometimes that's considered like a taxable.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, I think there's lots of options from the centralized space. So I think almost every neo fintech bank now has crypto. Could potentially integrate this. There's I think for Americans, I've seen a lot of mortgage startups. I'm not sure if they're still there. I think the major exchanges have cards. I think Coinbase has a card. Gemini has a card. There's lots of
Yeah,
cards.
there's all these crypto cards. I actually just recently did a podcast with another guy. Their company's called Goblin Card. It's in Mexico, and it's like a non-KYC
Mhm.
spend your Bitcoin debit.
Yep.
What's your take on this? The rise of the cards, I'm calling it. I feel like all these like neobank cards are a lot,
Yeah,
dozens.
I think that it's great to have a bank card because you can pay anywhere where there's digital point of sale. The only downside is financial privacy because card issuers or the providers, can see a good amount of transaction data where you spend, and it's really just the old fiat system, which is pretty inefficient. But obviously, the benefit is I think digital payments are great. I think it's easier than cash. On the flip side, what most people don't realize is that it does create a lot of dependency, and as a merchant on the other side, they pay between 0.5% to 2-3% in what they call high risk markets. It's even more, 3-5% in Latin America. And so the merchants always prefer cash. And I do feel that cash, the bearer asset, where you trade directly peer to peer, is the more sovereign way to transact. However, cash is trash because it's government issued and it loses value all the time and it's dirty. So I think most people that are younger and living globally or mobile prefer Apple Pay and Google Wallet, and these services are amazing because you just have your phone, your watch, or even Ring or whatever, right, and you pay anywhere you want. So I think it's all good. Everyone can choose what they prefer and consider the benefits and the downside of each. Bitcoin is the only thing that nobody can take from you. Your bank could be shut down. I just had actually my card, for some reason be suspended on Google Wallet. I had no idea. I had to call them. They don't know. They have to ask the support. So it's just, it's not the same. So I think, diversifying that, understanding the risks, the benefits, makes sense. But I personally think that it's fascinating to see. And again, it's looking back at the sovereign individual, right? So you have cyber monies now competing. What is the U.S. doing? Just yesterday, Tether, officially launched they call it USAT. So everyone knows USDT, the largest stablecoin that is a huge creates huge demands for T-bills and distributes dollar inflation worldwide on the blockchain. USAT is now corporate official with the government, approved by the government, fully regulated, will have all fully compliant, will possibly do KYC checks on chain. I don't know what's coming there, but it's just fascinating to see that Bitcoin created this competition in finance, in payments, in banking, everywhere. And I think it's great for consumers because competition is always great. It's just that we obviously have to know what to do. And what we have to do is purchase Bitcoin privately and secure it in the most secure way so that nobody can take it, which means, exchanges are not your friends. They always get hacked. Or even worse, historically, there has been, many, many cases where the superior money was confiscated by the powers, and in turn, they gave you worthless paper, IOU. So even I think Marco Polo had this in his diaries in the 1400s. They had death penalty for tradesmen that did not give in their gold in return for paper notes. So I think right now the game is, hey, everyone gets these nice USDT and USD, and you shouldn't own your Bitcoin. You should just put it on the exchange in order for you to be able to take loans on it and use it, right, and let the money work. I think that is very risky. You should always keep your money, keep your Bitcoin in self-custody, and that yield on it or that collateralized loan, it's a huge risk too. So I would never easily give away private keys or even part of the risk of the loan. Usually it's over collateralized, and as the price goes up, you're safe. But if the price goes down, you get liquidated. You just have to know the risks. So I think it's just amazing to see this, and the options are all there, and everyone can find the right thing.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense. And you're basically like what's it called? Like a pure Bitcoiner, right? Like you kind of believe in just holding Bitcoin and not a basket of currency.
Yeah, you're probably referring to Bitcoin maximalist, right? Which is this,
Yeah.
description that actually Vitalik Buterin, the Ethereum founder, coined, and then Bitcoiners were happy to take it on and actually see it as
Is that true? I didn't know that.
Yeah. Vitalik, there's a famous tweet about it, and yeah, it's kind of sticky, so it's a good thing. You could also call it minimalist. So I think once you see the long-term picture, there's now, I think, 5 or 10 million tokens. Obviously, bit of history, right? We started 2017 was the big ICO, initial coin offering hype, and everyone created a token to have a fast-tracked, unregulated IPO without any due diligence, and it's just dumping on retail in a very quick fashion, pump and dump. That created about 10,000 or maybe 40,000 tokens. Technology advanced. Fast forward 2025, you suddenly have millions of tokens and projects and even platforms that make it easy. So there was this famous thing, I think last year, hyped pump.fun, where people were creating tokens with one click. And all of these tokens are replicating the problem that the central controller and emitter of the token can create it without work by the click of a button out of thin air. This is exactly what the fiat money system does. The banks create money by credit expansion. And Bitcoin is the only thing you cannot print, you cannot create without work, with the proof of work, right, with a mining process. So all these other tokens, cannot fulfill the same level of predictability on their supply, which means only Bitcoin can ensure that the supply will stay under 21 million, and you cannot, there's no second best. What about Ethereum? Well, maybe the supply, dynamic changes. The top 10 tokens are not competing on that level. They're all competing on whatever, they say they are. Like sometimes they're world computer, then they're for, DeFi, and then it changes again next year.
So Leon, as we get to wrapping up, maybe this is a good time to share any final message that you have with the audience.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, follow BitVault on Twitter if you want to be informed about protecting and securing your Bitcoin stash. And I mean, if you don't have Bitcoin yet, I think probably a good time to start learning about it. And if you do have Bitcoin and are wondering how you could advance your setup, maybe you're doing self-custody for the first time, maybe you're interested in distributing it globally. Maybe you are interested in having keys in different jurisdictions, all these things. We would love to hear your thoughts and help you and get in touch. So I would love to connect with anyone that's interested in Bitcoin self-custody and multi-signature.
Absolutely. We'll leave your Twitter in the description to this video, to this podcast. So guys, just check out the podcast description. Link will be there for BitVault. Leon, get in touch, get your multi-sig going.
Yeah, Brandon, when do we see each other again? What's the next event where people interested in freedom gather?
Oh man, are you going to the Lugano Plan B Bitcoin in Switzerland?
Yes, positive. I'll be there. We will be there with a booth, I think, BitVault.
Really? Okay, cool.
Also, adopting Bitcoin is also a very quality, high signal niche event.
Yes,
in El
they're
Salvador.
Related, right? Yeah,
no.
Like the Lugano one and the El Salvador one, it's like they're related.
There's two. There's adopting Bitcoin, which is not related, and there's Lugano, or there's Plan B Forum, and they have an event in El Salvador. Yes.
Oh, okay. Two different things. Because I saw with the Lugano one, it's like you can get a 2-for-1 ticket to the Swiss event and the El Salvador event.
Right. Okay. Yep. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. We've talked to a bunch of those guys. Me Premier Bitcoin, friends of the podcast, BitRefill as well, been a supporter of the podcast. Leon, thank you so much for joining us for another episode of the MyLatinLife podcast. And for the audience, wherever you're listening to this, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, please leave a review, leave a 5 stars, follow, subscribe to the podcast. We put out 2 episodes a week with amazing guests like Leon. You won't want to miss an episode. Ciao for now.